Alright guys, finally, today we're going to be breaking down the massive top 5 matchup this weekend between Clemson and Georgia. I'm looking at the details. Clemson's a 3.5 point favorite. The total was set at 51 in this game. Primetime ABC, 7:30 p.m. will be the TV network. And then they'll be playing at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. So without further ado, let's get into this one. So looking at the Georgia offense, they look completely different over the final 4 games of the season with JT Daniels under center. The USC transferred certainly proved his pedigree. Daniels threw for 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns with 2 picks, average of almost 308 yards per game. Daniels was able to stretch the field unlike any other quarterback under Kirby Smart, and those 4 games were kind of an indication of how good this offense can be that returns multiple starters in 2021. The Bulldogs' running game will be in good hands, though. Zamir White, he's back following a 779-yard, 11-touchdown campaign. He's the bruiser of the backfield. He's also got some good pull-away speed, too. James Cook, he's a change of pace back that can hit the end zone in the blink of an eye. Cook didn't get a lot of touches last season, but did work when he did. Averaged 8.7 yards per play on 67 touches. If Georgia can stay healthy, it's got a good receiving core that can do damage with Daniels under center. The problem is, though, this receiving core is really beat up. George Pickens, Eric Gilbert, Dominic Blaylock, they're all out and listed as doubtful. Karis Jackson, Jermaine Burton, that is, they're probable, while Darnell Washington is also expected to be out. He's certainly questionable right now, though. So we're not really sure who's going to get the nod at receiver for Georgia. But just a quick breakdown with who can play. George Pickens, he's one of the most talented pass catchers in college football. He never got the chance to unleash his abilities, though, until Daniels took over. That could lead to a big year for the duo. Again, Pickens, he's going to be out for this game, though. But from a season standpoint, I just want to give you the rundown. Pickens and Karis Jackson tied for a team high with 36 receptions. That was one less, and they had one less yard than each other. So these guys had very similar production last year. Darnell Washington also made some big strides towards the end of the year. Big body, big athletic guy. I expect him to have a big year whenever he can hit the field. Jermaine Burton, he's a guy I really liked. He stepped up, made plays at times with the Bulldogs. He was a chain mover. So I think Burton's going to be likely be the number 1 in this game. Jackson, he might play. If so, then those guys are going to be leaned on heavily. It's still kind of hard to predict what's going to happen with the injury report. That can go either way. Looking at this Clemson offense, DJ Ungulate will take over at quarterback for Trevor Lawrence. Last year in his 2 starts, he already proved that he's going to be a future star. He showcased his poise and ability to make plays downfield. Made some good throws over the middle with confidence. He put on display his big arm. California native finished the year with 914 yards and 9 total touchdowns. Nearly the entire bulk of that came over the course of against those 2 starts against Boston College and on the road versus Notre Dame. He had 439 yards in South Bend. They were down in that game in the second half, and he led them back. He also threw a beautiful strike to open up overtime to set him up for a touchdown. They had no running game that night, and he absolutely carried them. This kid's going to be a future star. Clemson reloads their running back, Travis Etienne departs, but in comes 5-star all-purpose back Will Shipley. A lot of people are expecting big things from him. He can catch, he can run. He's electric in the open field. Can't wait to see the impact he has at Clemson. Shipley, though, he's in split time with the speedster Lynn J. Dixon. He's done solid work as a number 2 runner. Virtually no production as a receiver, though, so they do have those 2 backs that have differing skill sets. That's going to be a plus. The chemistry, though, with the receivers, it's going to have to be built. It's a talented receiving group, but DJ has not really worked with a lot of these guys extensively. Justin Ross, he'll come back following a spine condition that kept him out in 2020. Glad to have him back on the field. People forget how good he was during his first 2 seasons with Trevor Lawrence. E.J. Williams, a fellow native of Phoenix City, him and Ross were teammates in high school. They're both going to be joined in the starting lineup by Joseph Nagata. The Tigers' top returning production actually comes from a tight end, though, in Braden Galloway. It reasserts how this group needs some work together, and this game is going to be big in establishing some chemistry. Dakari and Bo Collins, Troy Stiletto, a few freshmen that I'm going to watch for in this game. I think they're going to have some meaningful playing time. And early in the season is the best chance to try and jump ahead on the other guys on your team for playing time. The Georgia defense, they've ranked number 1 in rush defense each of the past 2 seasons. They get back defensive tackles Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. That's going to go a long way in making that 3 straight years. The Bulldogs' front 7 as a whole, though, arguably the nation's best. Adam Anderson, outside linebacker, is expected to emerge as the next team's star pass rusher. They also get back leading tackler N'Kobe Dean, who's a phenomenal run stopper. Quay Walker, also back there, loaded with veterans in the front 7. These guys are going to be massive in determining this defense's success. Can't wait to see what these guys do. They were just phenomenal in the middle. Their secondary, they have some question marks. They lost 4 key players on last year's unit. They should reload, though, regardless. The lone returner is the ultra-physical safety Lewis Sign. But, the other guys around him, Tyke Smith, he will be out for this game. But again, to set the premise for the entire year, he's among the nation's top slot corners. He's overall a physical playmaker who should do elite things in this defense. Freshman Nyland Green and Keely Ringo, incredibly talented. They will be first in the action early in this game. They're going to be leaned on to make plays against some talented Clemson receivers. The addition of Darian Kendrick from Clemson should help alleviate any pressure off these young men. Georgia's secondary, they're going to be low, but week 1 against Clemson, it's not going to be easy, especially with Smith being out. You're just going to have to wait and see what happens. They're going to have to see their game plan. It's going to be tough to predict what happens. I don't expect them to get gashed or anything like that, but it's certainly something to look out for. The youth and inexperience with this passing offense you're about to play is certainly going to be tough for Georgia to overcome. The Clemson defense, they get back 92% of production from a season ago. That's third in all of college football, and that equals bad news bears for the rest of college football. Clemson, they are absolutely stacked on the defensive front, have an opportunity to be a historic unit. Defensive tackle Brian Bresee, top-ranked recruit in the class of 2020. But it was his fellow 5-star counterpart in Miles Murphy that had the most impact last year. Led the team with 11.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. One of the nation's top defensive tackles, and Tyler Davis is also back, along with former 5-star KJ Henry. And again, another 5-star Xavier Thomas. He's back. Last year, missed all of the season as he recovered from COVID. These guys are just insanely talented, great, impressive group to work with. It's going to be incredibly difficult to block these guys, not just for Georgia, but for any team. They can provide a lot of different looks with the athleticism, the strength. It's going to be tough it's going to be interesting to see how Georgia can run the ball. It's going to be a tough task. It's certainly one, though, that we're going to be looking forward to. Looking at the rest of this defense, Trenton Simpson, he's looking to build off a strong, respectable freshman season from his outside linebacker spot. Most importantly for this group, they get the QB of their defense back in James Skalski, the Georgia native. He was missed. He missed 3 games last year, and you could notice the difference when he was gone. The Tigers had 3 of the worst games defensively, a 4th if you count when he was ejected in the Sugar Bowl. This unit has a bad taste in their mouth following the aforementioned beatdown against Ohio State. And these guys will be playing with a fire all season long. I think Brett Venables is going to have these guys booming. They're going to have a bad, ugly taste in their mouth, and they're going to be out there just bashing opponents all year long. For that to happen, though, the secondary has to be retooled. As we just mentioned, Kendrick was dismissed early in the offseason, but Andrew Booth, he showed flashes of being a top lockdown corner. He should occupy that spot. Clemson's corner rotation, it was a little inconsistent last year. I'm anticipating leap years from guys like Mario Goodrich, Sheridan Jones, and then the lone returner, who's a veteran, Nolan Turner. He anchors down the back end for what was actually an impressive secondary, despite the shaky play in their 2 losses. And then Boston College had some success, too. So both teams, their biggest concern lies in the secondary. They're both going to be stout come the end parts of the year. But, for a week 1 against the passing attacks they're facing, it's going to be a little questionable. It's certainly going to be up to what secondary can play the best. That's going to be a big impact. That's going to be a big X factor. Looking at who has the edge at quarterback, it's kind of even, though. JT Daniels, he played more games last year, so I guess you can give Georgia the slight edge. But neither of these guys exactly played a lot last year, but they both shined when they had the opportunity. They both looked great, very even. Daniels and Ungole, 2 of the best in their respective conferences. So there's no real edge there. Both teams are very happy with what they have at quarterback. At running back, again, both very talented, but Georgia has the edge. James Cook, Zamir White. They're very deep, too, with Kendall Milton being another guy who can get involved. I really like what Georgia has at running back. They've remained incredibly deep at that position. Pass catchers for this game is going to be Clemson, but I think when you're fully healthy, it's Georgia. But they won't be for this game, so Clemson has a slight edge. Justin Ross, one of the top pass catchers in all of college football. I'm a big fan of E.J. Williams and Joseph Nagata. I think they have a really strong starting lineup. Those guys are going to I think DJ's going to do a great job of distributing the ball. I think all those guys are going to have pretty solid production come this season. You give Georgia the edge on offensive line. Clemson, they've never exactly had an elite offensive line under Dabo Swinney. Matt Brockhorst is back on the interior, but the interior is still a question mark for me. It's probably the weakest part of their football team. Jackson Carmine, left tackle's gone. Of course, they've recruited the position very well, but pretty inexperienced on the offensive front. Georgia with Slayer back. He's one of the most underrated linemen in all of college football, and they've absolutely killed recruiting at that position. They're incredibly talented. They can throw it any kind of rotation they want, and it's going to do good. Georgia has the edge there. Look at pass rush. Got to give it to Clemson. Stacked defensive front that they have. These guys can come at you with so many different angles. They're not far behind though with their pass rush. They have very talented linebackers. That's what they have the edge there. N'Kobe Dean, probably the best run stopper in all of college football. But if you want to go back to the pass rush, Clemson certainly has the edge there with Murphy and Brissy. They can come at you from the interior and the outside, off the edge. Very impressive stuff. I can't wait to see what this defensive front does this season. The secondary, kind of even. Both teams, they are very inexperienced. Very talented, though, but very inexperienced. Clemson, the last game, they got absolutely brutalized. I don't think you'll see a repeat performance of that here in this game. But, it's still fresh on everyone's minds how they played in their final game of the season. Darian Kendrick goes over from Clemson to Georgia. So, very youthful, very talented. Towards the end of the year, these guys will be playing fine, probably in the secondary. But for this game, very shaky. That's a giant X factor. Looking at what Georgia has to do to win this game, I think they're going to have to generate pressure up the middle consistently. As I said, that's a big weakness for the Clemson offensive line is their interior. And they have two bull rushers in Davis and White are going to disrupt plenty. Force DJ out of the pocket, force him to make some mistakes downfield. Give that secondary an opportunity to make some plays. That's what Georgia needs to do. They also need to be, pretty effective running the ball. That's their bread and butter. Give JT Daniels some help because you're not really sure what you're going to give them the receiving corps as they're so beat up. So they're going to have to run the ball effectively. I don't know about efficiency. As long as they're effective and rip off some big plays to give this passing offense some help, that's going to be a key for them. And the same can be said for Clemson. How do you tackle in space? Georgia has these athletes. James Cook is a guy I think he's going to get a lot of touches this game and this year. Keep those guys within the tackles. Don't let them make plays in space. Also, be better in the secondary. Have communication. That was a big problem in the Sugar Bowl. They had miscommunication all night long. They got it shredded. Doesn't matter who's going to be playing pass catcher for Georgia. If you're getting beat deep, they'll find you. JT Daniels will put it on them. So just be stout in the secondary. Make tackles in space. You don't want those guys to make. You don't want those guys in the open field. White, Cook, they can do damage. Overall, it's really hard to find X factors and matchups in this game. We alluded to the secondary a lot. The defensive front, the battle in the trenches is going to be very key in this game. I see Clemson coming out on top. I think it's going to be a slugfest back and forth. I see them winning 34-28. I just think that DJ is going to make plays when the time's right. I think the score in the second half is going to start going back and forth. But overall, this game has always been great between these two teams. I think you're going to see another one here with the Tigers coming out on top. I wish Georgia was more healthy. That's going to be a big problem for them. I don't think they're going to get blown out regardless, though. They've recruited very well. They're going to have a lot of guys you've probably not heard of before step up and make plays. So I can't wait to watch this game, but I do have Clemson coming out on top 34-28. Leave your prediction in the comments below. Subscribe and leave a like. See you guys next time.